Hello mech warriors! We're continuing our review of the best mechs of the clan invasion era for the Inner Sphere side. Today we're talking about brawlers. These are close range specialists, mechs with really big close range damage. They also want to emphasize durability more than anything else. We're talking guys with medium laser spam, 15 at least armor on every section, and preferably 20. These are the mechs that you want to run onto an objective and stay there and fight and beat up other mechs in melee while blasting away with medium lasers, SRMs, even small lasers, pulse lasers, and the mighty AC-20. Alright, let's start out with one of my favorite medium brawlers, the Kintaro. One of the best SRM boats in the game. Intro tech Kintaros tend to be very undersynced, but the double heat sinks solve most of that problem. The Kintaro 20 and the Kintaro C are pretty much clones of one another. The Kintaro C just swaps out one medium laser for a C3 computer. However, with only 20 double heat sinking, the Kintaro 20 can't fire the large laser and all of the close range weapons together, so it's not that big of a deal that they give up the one medium laser. The Kintaro C can fire all of the close range weapons together while running and only pick up one heat, so that's pretty great. Although the Kintaro 20 definitely does have the better damage overall, so you have to make your decision. Do you want to pay the extra 60 battle value so that you can do a little more damage at close range? Now, with 2 tons of ammo, you can either just take 2 standard tons and you'll have 15 turns of firing, but probably don't really need that much ammo, and Infernos are pretty good, so taking a ton of Infernos here, definitely not a bad idea. Then we've got the Kintaro 21, which is a Comstar mech, great battle value cost, great armor, even though it is a little bit less armor than the 20 and the C, but the only place where you really see it is the rear armor and the CT, and 1 less point on the arms isn't that relevant. But this is an Einarch carrying mech, which is really cool. Technically is available in the clan invasion era, but it is experimental, and this is one of the best Einarch carriers in my opinion because A, it wants to get in close and brawl with its close range weapons anyways, so the Einarch is just a nice addition. B, the Einarch pods contribute to its already great survivability with Haywire, and C, despite being around the same battle value as the Kintaro C, it's not paying for the large laser and LRM-5, so it has pretty much equivalent close range firepower to the Kintaro 20. Now that large laser is a great weapon to have, but when you've got Einarch that is directly benefiting your SRMs, it does actually make a big difference. I've played a couple of matches against people with 2 of these mechs running side by side and spamming some LRMs, spamming some SRMs, and it's definitely pretty effective. Now this mech does have one major weakness, and that is that all of the ammo's in the right torso and the lasers are on the right arm. So if you get an ammo crit in the right torso, which is pretty likely because there's mostly just ammo in there, the mech is completely disarmed and no longer has any weapons. It's just a walking kick bot. But with 11 damage kicks, I mean, it's still going to be annoying, it's still going to knock people over, and with Case, at least the mech isn't completely disabled. Alright, the venerable Hunchback is a classic brawler. Even the regular 4G is going to be a decent brawler in this era, but we have Lost Tech updates to the design in this era that make it quite a bit better. Great armor, 20 on pretty much everything except the arms. Excellent close range firepower, an AC-20 and 2 medium lasers is always solid. And a very cheap price tag, 1,041 battle value for the Hunchback 5N, which can now fire all of its close range weapons together without overheating, is fantastic. Now the 6N drops a couple of heat sinks, increases the battle value a little bit by increasing the ammo load and adding Case. So now we don't lose the mech immediately as soon as we lose the left torso with a big ammo explosion. However, the right torso AC-20 is completely disarmed once the ammo is gone, so the mech might as well be dead. We've got a small pulse laser and a medium laser to back up the mech once its AC-20 is no longer functioning, and it doesn't really feel the loss of heat sinks unless it starts taking some engine crits, so I like the 6N quite a bit. You want to pay the extra 100 battle value for it? That's up to you. Now the 5S is a little bit different. We've got increased armor very slightly. However, despite increasing the armor, we've actually reduced the front armor protection. Instead of having the famously weak rear torsos like the other Hunchbacks, the Hunchback 5S opts to up armor the rear torsos, sacrificing that solid 20 armor on the front of the side torsos. However, we've got 24 armor on the legs, which is great, and the CT is still pretty well protected. We have a better range on our big gun. The LBX cannon is 4812 versus 369, and we've got 4 tons of ammo, plenty of field sustainability. We do have a light engine, which is an interesting inclusion. This is one of the first mechs that has a light engine as far as I'm aware. So losing the side torso doesn't mean that we are immediately disabled. And we swapped the standard medium lasers for 2 pulse lasers, which is great. And we add in some jump jets. So we've got like almost a heavy cavalry mech here. It's got decent mobility. It's got good heat sinking. The armor is still fantastic. And we've got a lot of firepower and some versatility. The LB-20X is incredibly good at taking out enemy vehicles if it can get into the sides or rear, because those pellets will just immobilize pretty much anything. And if you're in the rear arc, there's a very good chance that you're just going to completely destroy the engine. So if you're dealing with an energy tank, the LB-20X is pretty much going to disable it in 1 turn if it hits. And with the increased to hit bonuses of the LB-20X and the pulse lasers, this is actually pretty good at taking out fast movers. So all 3 of these are going to be pretty solid. The Hunchback 5S is the best of the bunch, but obviously you pay that extra battle value for it. So just consider if you think it's going to be worth it or not. Alright, another classic battle mech here. The Thunderbolt is everyone's favorite heavy trooper, but what happens when we give it some lost tech and a new role? We've got jump jets in this thing. We've got the standard fusion engine, very tough to take down. Maxed out armor, which is a little bit more than Thunderbolts normally even have. And because it has so few weapons overall, the battle value is still pretty reasonable at 1439. 1 LRM-10 to poke at long range, and then we've got a large pulse laser and 3 medium lasers to shred close range targets. The Thunderbolt 9 SE is less flexible than most of its counterparts. Like I covered a couple of Thunderbolt variants in the previous video about troopers, but this is a little bit different. This very much emphasizes the close range at the exclusion of everything else, and this technically has less close range damage overall than, say, the Thunderbolt 9M, because it doesn't have the SRM pack, but it's emphasizing durability and it's emphasizing a little bit of extra mobility to help it get into position with those close range weapons faster. And despite having more mobility, it's a little bit cheaper than the Thunderbolt 9M, while still maintaining most of its close range relevance. You could even say that it is better at close range technically, despite having 1 less weapon to fire at that range, because the large pulse laser is very accurate and very specialized for fighting at range 3, which is where this mech ultimately wants to be. Point blank, kicking people with its 65 tons and blasting them with the lasers. Here's one that I see talked about a little less than classic mechs like the Hunchback and the Thunderbolt. We've got the Thunder, a reasonably mobile 70-ton mech. 1471 battle value is quite decent. We have an AC-20, 3 medium pulse lasers, and a paltry LRM-5 for a little bit of long-range poke. If you're using smoke, you might just want to put some smoke rounds in there, honestly. The XL engine is a little bit problematic. It has some durability issues here, but this is basically just a bigger, faster Hunchback. We got 3 tons of ammo and case, so the mech is recoverable, but it's going to be knocked out of combat. And the only thing in the left torso other than the ammo is an LRM-5 and 1 medium pulse laser, so there is a really high likelihood that it will get an ammo crit, so it's a little bit of a walking bomb. But if you're looking for a mobile AC-20 and maybe something to hunt light mechs with those pulse lasers, you could definitely do worse than the Thunder. Plus, in later eras, 3 tons of ammo means that it can take a bunch of precision, like say 2 tons of precision and then 1 ton of standard ammo. That's really strong. Being able to have 9 rounds of sustained fire with that AC-20 while having some precision is very good. So ignore the skirmisher role that it has. The LRM-5 does not make it a skirmisher at all. This is a dedicated close range brawler, and the Thunder is a pretty good one. Alright, speaking of bigger Hunchbacks, we have the Shoest 8A, standard engine, just like a Hunchback, very solid, hard to take down. 215 points of armor makes it super tough. That 70-ton kick is gonna really hurt at that close range, and it has adequate heat sinking to pretty much alpha strike every turn. It will have to lay off with that ER large laser every once in a while to cool down, but it's very well heat sinked overall. Now, only 10 rounds of fire with the AC-20 is a little bit of a problem, but you want this thing to just shove into the enemy's face anyways, and at some point they are going to kill it. We've got case, so even if you take an ammo crit, it's not gonna knock the mech out completely, because we have all of the lasers mounted in not the left torso and left arm, whereas the AC-20 and ammo is all in the left torso and left arm, which is fantastic. I really love when a brawler has a little something to throw in at long range while it's closing. thing. And the ER large laser is a great weapon for that, very battle value efficient for a long range weapon. And since it's so well heat sinked, it can just use that at close range as well, so it's not paying that extra battle value for nothing. Since it's not really a bracket fire mech, it can just fire everything all the time. I love the Shootist. I really need to start bringing this in games because it is such a solid brawler. Now the Axman is an interesting mech because it's kind of like an upsized medium. We've got 464 movement. The 1N has the XL engine, which makes it a little bit less durable than you might expect, and just under 180 armor makes it about as durable as one of those Kintaros we were looking at earlier, but 21 on the front of the torsos, 24 on the legs, 28 on the CT, really well armored overall. The 1N does have a bit of a problem where the medium lasers are all mounted in the right arm, which is where the hatchet is, so you can't laser and hatchet in the same turn, but you typically want to be kicking anyways, so that's not that big of a deal. The big thing is that this mech carries just so much close range firepower. We've got an AC-20, we've got a large pulse laser, we've got 3 medium lasers, and we don't have the heat sinks to fire all of them, unfortunately. So undersinking is definitely one of this mech's biggest weaknesses, but look at that battle value, 1374. It's about the same price as the LB20 Jump Jet Hunchback that we looked at, and has much more firepower, although this mech is going to cook itself pretty quick if you start alpha striking everything. But that's an opportunity cost that sometimes is worth it. And just an AC-20 and large pulse laser at close range is great hole punching power. Now the more advanced 3S Axman pays about 300 more battle value, but we get the extra durability of a light engine, another early adoption of the light engine here. Same armor, great armor protection, but we still have this problem with the undersinking. But it's not quite as bad here. The weapons together produce 21 heat, we have 20 heat sinks, so we're just going to pick up movement heat +1, and we've got lots of ammo here. Unlike the Axman, which has a bit of a field endurance problem, the 3S does not have that issue. And we've got ECM, which is a nice little addition to have on a brawler mech. You want to get them in the enemy's face and disable their Artemis. So the 3S and the 1N Axman are both pretty solid close range fighters. Alright, it wouldn't be much of a video about brawlers if we didn't talk about the Black Knight. Looking like a straight up crusader, this guy is ready to get in close and beat the brakes off of any mech that it comes across. The classic BL6 KNT is still very relevant in this era. This is technically a lost tech design because it uses endo steel. This doesn't become available again until like just before the clan invasion era, but we've got a PPC and 2 large lasers for that long to mid-range fighting, although we don't really have enough heat sinks to fire all of them. But we've got a blistering 4 medium lasers at close range, which we can fire together with one of the large lasers very comfortably. Now, the Black Knight does overpay a little bit because it has too many weapons, but because it's under heat synced, it gets a battle value discount on some of them. And we've got very solid armor here, 24 on everything except the CT, which has 29, and solid rear armor as well. And we've got an active probe, so you can see enemies coming, which is nice. Now, the royal variant of the Black Knight is the superior version, in my opinion. The ERPPC is a bit of a battle value tax, but it gives you some long range poke. And then the main thing is that it has 32 heat sinking, so it can fire most of its close range weapons together without overheating. We've got 2 large pulse lasers and 4 medium lasers, which we can fire all together at close range, which will just melt enemies. Both of these have the standard fusion engine, which is fantastic durability, and they're zombie mechs. You can knock off the arms, you can knock off the torsos. It's still gonna keep fighting. Lastly, we have the Clan Buster Black Knight. This was invented by Comstar, and it has the weakness of the XL engine, but has a up-armored center torso and legs, and we've got some very good overall firepower, 2 large lasers and an ERPPC, which can be fired together at that medium range, and then we've got a large pulse laser and 4 medium pulse lasers, so if this thing gets close to enemy fast movers, they are just gonna melt. We have a hatchet to increase the flexibility of melee attacks. Just make sure that you're not firing that left arm mounted medium pulse laser when you want to use it. And when you close into that close range, you can get 1 large laser, 1 large pulse laser, and all the medium pulse lasers fired together without picking up too much heat. 3 medium pulse lasers, 1 large laser, and a large pulse laser is pretty much heat neutral. Now, despite being less durable than its cousins, the Clan Buster Black Knight is the most expensive of the bunch, so just keep in mind you are definitely taking a risk with that XL engine. I prefer the 6 or the 6B personally. If you've got a few battle value points left over, I would probably recommend the 6B be Black Knight. Next up, we have a very interesting mech. We've got the Cestius. The weakness of the XL engine is a bit of a problem here, but otherwise this mech is rock solid. The 6Z is my preferred brawler. Obviously, we've got 2 PPCs, 2 large lasers, and enough heat sinks that we can fire all 4 of those every other turn or so. And 2 medium lasers gives it that extra nice close range punch. So we can swap off of one of the PPCs and mix in the medium lasers at close range. Solid armor, 30 on the legs, 20 on the arms, which is very important because all of the weapons are in the arms. And then 22 on the torsos and 32 on the CT, with decent rear armor as well. Maxed armor for a 65 tonner is always impressive. Then we've got the Cestius 6Y, which trades out the PPCs for a Gauss rifle. I don't like this quite as much. I do like having that one long-range weapon that we can use on the way in, but it adds an explosive risk in a mech with an XL engine, which is problematic, especially because the Gauss rifle will exactly kill that torso as soon as it goes explosive. But we've still got those nice arm-mounted large and medium lasers to blast people at close range. I would pretty much always take the 6Z instead of the 6Y, just because it's way better at its designed job, which is getting in close and fighting. Plus, with the extra heat sinking on the 6Z, you can afford to take some engine crits and still keep fighting with most of your weapons. Another mech that I discovered while doing research for this video, the Spartan. A 5'8" movement mech at 80 tons. This is basically the Inner Sphere equivalent of the clan Gargoyle, and only 1600 battle value? I mean, that's fantastic. 26 armor on every location, except the CT, which is 31. Pretty decent rear armor as well. You can take a clan medium pulse laser without going internal, which is great. 3 medium pulse lasers in the right arm means that anything that tries to get behind this mech is gonna get absolutely toasted. 1 ER PPC to fire on the way in is a nice little addition. And then we've got 2 Streak 2s mounted in the center torso to do a little bit of crit seeking. We've got a little bit too much ammo in here. That's pretty much my only really big gripe with this mech. Both the left and right torso are carrying 2 tons of ammo each, but the anti-missile system does increase the mech's durability nicely, and it's got a tag to guide in LRM fire, which is great. Overall, I think that this is a fantastic mech. You just probably want to dump 1 ton of that Streak SRM2 ammo. You could probably even do the same for the anti-missile system ammo, since most matches aren't going to last more than 12 rounds. Alright, it wouldn't be a video about brawlers without talking about triple strength Myanmar. Double melee damage is incredibly good at close range, especially when you've got a bigger mech like the Nodachi. This DCMS mech is an absolute terror. 6'9" movement once you've got the TSM active, and the 2KO is just an absolute monster. We've got a large pulse laser, 6 medium pulse lasers, a couple of rear-mounted ER medium lasers, so that even if enemies get behind you, you can discourage them from being there, and then a small pulse laser and small laser really help with heat management to keep that TSM active, and 1 flamer is actually pretty useful for setting fires, and also dealing with any infantry that you might come across, along with that small pulse laser. So this is obviously just an absolute monster when it comes to close range damage, but the Nodachi 2K is no slouch either. It's a little bit more flexible. It brings MRMs instead of a lot of the smaller lasers, still maintains 5 medium pulse lasers, which is a deadly close range complement, and has an ER large laser for 1 weapon to poke at long range. It does sacrifice a bit of the armor here, which is unfortunate. Those nice 10 armor slabs on the rear torsos were really great for just discouraging enemies from getting behind you, along with the rear-mounted lasers. And our heat sinking isn't quite as good here, which is unfortunate as well, but the 2K is definitely more flexible. Plus, it also has ECM, which is a really great thing to have, especially if you're using ghost targets, because you're probably going to want to invest in piloting for both of these mechs. Now, obviously, they are both quite expensive. 1730 battle value is no joke, but if you can get that TSM active and if you can get the mech in to use it, you will be performing some 28 damage kicks, which will rip the legs off of most medium mechs and will go internal on a lot of heavies. Plus, you've got that sword for some highly accurate attacks on someone that is on a cliff above you, Of course, it is only punch damage, but that is still a 14 damage hit, which is pretty impressive. Alright, we've looked at the DCMS. Let's see what the Capellan Confederation has to offer in TSM mechs. We have the Titsong, a terrifyingly fast 60-ton heavy mech with 711-6 movement once the TSM is active. Now, you pay a battle value premium for this, 1880 for the 9H, 1909 for the 9J. You can get a really good long-range support assault mech for this price, but we have, in my opinion, the much better melee weapon. We've got the hatchet mounted in that right arm, and we've still got solid armor overall. The 9H is better in my opinion. It got a bunch of ER medium lasers and a few ER smalls, although the 9J is again a little more flexible. It's got the one ER large which it can fire at long range, so even if the enemy does not allow you to close, you can still fight at range 14. But in my opinion, the real standout here is actually their little brother, the Vindicator 5L. Now, I put this mech in the trooper category because it does have that ER PPC, but 584 movement isn't really ideal for getting into melee. I mean, certainly not as good as 711-6, but you're paying like 500 battle value less for this mech than for these two, and it's still going to have some devastating close range damage. 18 damage kicks is really strong, and it's got overall better heat management since it has one small pulse laser for the 2, one small laser for the 1. You have to be a little bit more careful about how you're firing your weapons with both of these because they don't have any weapons that produce 1 heat, so those fine adjustments aren't quite as easy. And staying at exactly 9 heat with TSM is crucial. Now keep in mind, with all TSM mechs, they're going to suffer a lot in a meta where people are bringing a lot of heat weapons. So if lots of vehicle lances tend to be used in your meta, and therefore people bring a lot of plasma weapons and or Inferno SRMs, TSM mechs are going to suffer a lot, but they do at least actually get a benefit for getting overheated. So you can kind of bait people into hitting your TSM mech with Infernos and not actually spike your heat to 9 yourself. Anyways, all of these mechs are pretty solid. Well, all of these mechs are pretty solid. I think that if you want a dedicated melee brawler, the Nodachi 2KO is definitely your best bet. Just the sheer amount of pulse lasers and the ability to fine-tune its heat that this mech brings is very impressive. Plus, it is extremely heavily armored and not easy to take out even from the rear. Alright, moving on to large laser spam the mech, we've got the Flashman 8K and 9C. Both cost exactly the same amount of battle value, which is kind of shocking and strange. They have about the same armor protection, although the 8K emphasizes its legs more, whereas the 9C emphasizes its center torso a little bit more. And the 9C is a little bit more of a trooper mech, honestly. I would have put this in the trooper list, but I actually just didn't know it existed. But it does definitely have a heat problem. It can't fire all of its ER large lasers without overheating, and rather than medium and large laser spam for close range, it has all medium pulse lasers, which makes it either a long range skirmisher or an ultra close range knife fighter. The Flashman 8K is really the mech that I wanted to talk about here though. 3 large lasers is an incredibly good mid-range complement, and then 4 medium lasers which it can fire along with 2 large lasers while staying under that 30 heat is really impressive overall damage. Bit of a battle value premium here. 1780 battle value is no joke, but you've got the kicking power of a 75 tonner and solid armor. The XL engine does give it a bit of a weakness, but the anti-missile system does protect it against missiles, which is kind of nice, and the AMS ammo in the right torso is reasonably well crit padded. If you want a reasonably quick mech with lots of large lasers on it, you could do worse than the Flashman 8K. Alright, we're starting to get up there in the battle value costs now. We've got the Sasquatch. This is a proper assault mech. 464 movement is pretty nice. The XL engine does give it a bit of a durability issue. For nearly 2000 battle value, if you lose that right torso, the mech is dead. That's pretty problematic. But we've got an AMS to protect us from LRMs on the way in. We have a blistering 4 medium pulse lasers in the left arm, which are really well protected by 26 armor. So if someone tries to get behind this mech and get through its thin rear armor, they're gonna get absolutely cooked by medium pulse lasers. And then to complement those, we've got an SRM6 and 2 machine guns at close range. A rear-mounted small laser is very paltry. I honestly don't even know why this has it, but it is nice crit padding for the head. It gives an extra small chance that if you do get a head hit on this very expensive mech, that one of your critical systems is not completely disabled. And then we've got a Gauss rifle in the right arm as a weapon to use on the way in, which is pretty nice to have. have. It can also be used at close range. The Gauss rifle doesn't have that big of a minimum range, so you can close to range 4 where the medium pulse lasers really shine and blast them with the Gauss rifle and the SRMs all at once. Great armor, 33 on the legs, 27 on the torsos, means that you can take a Gauss rifle, a Clan large pulse laser, and an SRM hit before going internal, and nearly 40 armor on the center torso is really strong. Sasquatch is just a solid brawler with a little bit of something that it can use on the way in, with some great mobility and more than adequate heat sinking. You can even take some engine criticals and still be able to fire all of your weapons no problem with the Sasquatch. Alright, now we've got a real big boy. We have the Emperor, 90 tons, just under 2,000 battle value. Does have the XL engine, a little bit of a durability problem, but those jump jets are pretty nice. It's able to navigate hills and forests a little bit better than other mechs of its speed, and it has insane armor, 30 on every location and 38 on the legs and 48 on the CT. Very solid. We have 2 LB-10s with 2 tons of ammo for each, which is great, 2 large lasers for that mid-range punch, and then a couple medium pulse lasers as well as 1 medium laser make this mech extremely good at fighting at close range. Now the 24 heat sinking is a little bit inadequate, but you can just turn off 1 large laser at close range and then fire all of the other close range weapons, or fire those large lasers and LB-10X autocannons at that mid range. So great mech, very flexible, good at taking out vehicles and flyers with the LB-10Xs, great at crit seeking with those as well. I definitely really like the Emperor. Alright, let's talk about a real big boy. We have a 100-tonner, the Grand Titan. This is a 100-ton mech with 4/6 movement with an XL engine and nearly 300 armor. And it only costs 1,700 battle value? Are you kidding me? This is value, baby. 4/6 means that it can get that nice 2 TMM pretty often, and it's got only 24 heat sinking, which is kind of the only really big problem with this mech. It can't really consistently use its 2 large pulse lasers along with everything else that it has for close range. I'd honestly rather see a cutting of the LRM-15 for a little bit more armor and a couple more heat sinks, but the lack of heat sinks is pretty much actually the reason why it is so cheap, because most of the weapons here are getting a discount. We've got 2 small pulse lasers in the rear to discourage enemy light mechs from closing. We've got an anti-missile system, which will keep it a little bit safer from missiles. 30 armor pretty much on every location. The arms have 29, but 31 on the left and right torso, 42 on the CT, 38 on the legs. This is a tough armor brick for a pretty reasonable price. And we've got Artemis on all of the missiles, which makes them pretty great at just putting out a lot of missiles. Pair of medium pulse lasers, pair of large pulse lasers, pair of SRM-6s makes up the close range complement. And then we've got an LRM-15 with 2 tons of ammo, so it can fire pretty much every turn without any problems. So it's got a little bit of something to use on the way in, and then it's got a lot of close range weapons. You're pretty much going to have to choose between using the twin large pulse lasers and like 1 medium pulse laser, or all of the close range weapons together on a cooldown turn, mixing in 1 large pulse laser once you're cooled off. But overall, the 10M Grand Titan is a pretty solid brawler. Now, just looking at the 11M Grand Titan, we have an ERPPC and light Gauss rifle. This makes it more like a trooper mech, but we've got 32 heat sinking here, which allows it to fire all of its close range weapons together, unlike the Grand Titan 10M. And it's definitely got more long range damage. We have 18 long range damage here, whereas the LRM-15 is something like 10 on average in 2 clusters with the Artemis active. And the 11M does have ECM, which is pretty nice, and it's a lot less explosive overall. One thing that is a big problem with the 10M is that it has so much ammo and no case. Then again, it does have an XL engine, so case doesn't really save you, but we do have case on the 11M, so that's very valuable in campaigns so that you don't lose the mech. It's a great close range brawler with some good long range firepower if you want a big, hard to kill trooper mech. The 10M is really the mech that we're looking at here, and I think that for its battle value cost, this mech is great value. Thanks so much for watching, Mech Warriors. Really appreciate it. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Really helps out the channel a lot. I think the Hunchback 5N is one of my favorite mechs from this list just because it's so darn cheap. What is your favorite mech, and are there any mechs that are missing from this list that you would recommend? leave them in the comments. If you're looking for other great mechs, check out my Best of 3025 video and my Best of 3050 video. Those actually might have your favorites in there, such as the Guillotine, the Grasshopper, and the Hunchback 4P. If you're looking for more great content, go check out the live tab on my channel. Lots of great stuff over there, from tactics games to cozy farm games, and even some tabletop RPGs like Mordheim that I've been playing recently. Hope you enjoyed this one, Mech Warriors, and have a great day.